The Murdaugh family wasn't just wealthy. They were institutional. For over 100 years, the Murdaughs controlled the legal system in South Carolina's Low Country like royalty. Courtroom decisions, political connections, and generational power were all part of the family's legacy. So when the name Murdaugh hit national headlines, not for courtroom victories, but for a double homicide, it felt like watching a dynasty collapse in real time. But behind the scandal, one person remained largely silent: Alec Murdaugh's only surviving son, Buster. While Alec was convicted of murdering his wife and youngest son, and the family's secrets began to unravel, Buster became a ghost in the chaos. Occasionally seen, rarely heard. And that silence sparked questions. Did Buster know more than he admitted? And how has he lived with the wreckage of the most public downfall in South Carolina history? It was quiet in rural Colleton County, South Carolina, just past 10 p.m. on June 7, 2021, when the first chilling details began to emerge. At exactly 10:07 p.m., Alec Murdaugh dialed 911, reporting that he had just returned to his family's estate, known locally as Murdagh, and found the bodies of his wife, Maggie, and their youngest son, Paul. Both were fatally shot near the dog kennels, located several hundred feet from the main house. Maggie had been struck multiple times with a rifle. Paul, even more graphically, had been shot in the head and chest with a shotgun. Investigators would later describe the scene as horrific, the kind of violence that even seasoned officers rarely encounter. The timeline of Alec's movements that night would quickly become a focal point. He claimed to have been visiting his elderly mother, who was suffering from late-stage Alzheimer's. But almost immediately, the story began to crack. Digital forensics, GPS records, and phone data would later suggest he was near the scene far closer to the estimated time of death than he admitted. But in the immediate aftermath of the discovery, Alec presented himself as a grieving father and husband who had come home to find his world shattered. That image would not hold for long. For Buster Murdaugh, who received the call from his father shortly after the police were notified, everything changed in a single moment. He had been staying in Rock Hill, hours away from Murdagh, when he answered the phone that night. On the other end, Alec's voice was strained, trembling. Odd, as Buster would later describe it in court. It was then that his father delivered the unthinkable news. Maggie and Paul were gone. Shot dead. Buster and his girlfriend, Brooklyn White, packed what they could and immediately began the drive back to Murdagh. The journey was long, surreal, and terrifying. One of those stretches of time that stretches out in your memory, where every second feels heavier than the last. By the time they arrived at the estate, the crime scene was sealed off. Blue lights flashed across the fields. Law enforcement swarmed the grounds. News crews were already beginning to descend on the area. When Buster walked into the house and saw his father for the first time, Alec appeared devastated. He was slumped, tearful, and seemingly broken. Buster hugged him. The family that once stood so tall had been shattered, and from Buster's perspective, it happened in an instant. But over time, the cracks began to deepen, and the night of June 7th would become more than just a moment of tragedy. It would mark the beginning of a relentless unraveling, one that would call everything into question: loyalty, innocence, truth, and the legacy of a once untouchable family. In the months following the murders, Buster vanished from the public spotlight. Friends and former classmates described him as emotionally devastated, paranoid, and withdrawn. One told People magazine, "He's not doing well at all. He really closed off and built walls around himself." Another said his social circle got really small, really fast. It's not hard to imagine why. In a matter of months, Buster had gone from being a promising law student and heir to a prestigious legal dynasty to the last man standing in a family consumed by crime, death, and disgrace. He had no choice but to step back. But even silence couldn't keep him out of the story for long. When Alec Murdaugh went to trial in early 2023, Buster took the stand. One of the most emotional and scrutinized moments of the entire case. His testimony was pivotal. He was calm, composed, and unwavering in his belief that his father was innocent. He told the court about the night he received the phone call from Alec. His father's voice sounded odd, he said. And then came the words that would haunt him forever. "Your mom and brother have been shot." Buster and his longtime girlfriend, Brooklyn White, immediately drove to the family's hunting estate. When he walked through the door, he found Alec devastated. He was heartbroken, Buster told the jury. I walked in and gave him a hug. Throughout his testimony, he made it clear that he had never doubted Alec's version of events. He insisted his father had been with his grandmother, who suffered from Alzheimer's, at the time of the murders. But the jury didn't buy it. After 28 days of testimony and just 3 hours of deliberation, Alec was found guilty of both murders and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms. And yet, Buster remained loyal. Even after Alec was sentenced, Buster didn't cut ties. He continued to accept calls from his father in prison, even as their conversations reportedly became awkward and strained. But a surprising shift came when Buster agreed to appear in The Fall of the House of Murdaugh, a Fox Nation documentary that aired in 2023. For the first time, he showed cracks in his once unwavering support. During the interview, Buster admitted that his father showed traits of a psychopath, telling Martha McCallum, "You look at the manipulation, the lies, the way he carried all that out. I think that's a fair assessment." It was a startling admission, especially from a son who had defended his father under oath, who had stood by him when almost no one else did. Alec's lies had extended to Buster as well. He had lied to his own son about his alibi, and now, even Buster seemed to be coming to terms with the idea that the man he loved might have been capable of unthinkable things. Before all of this, Buster had planned to become a lawyer, just like his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He enrolled at the University of South Carolina School of Law, Alec's alma mater, and was on track to inherit the family name's prestige. But in 2019, he was expelled from the program. The reason? Allegedly plagiarism and poor academic performance. Afterward, Alec spent thousands trying to get him readmitted, even from jail. He paid a prominent lawyer $60,000 in hopes of securing Buster's second chance. In a 2021 prison phone call, Alec told him, "You've got to treat it like a job. There's not going to be another chance." But Buster never returned to law school. As of 2025, he's put that dream on hold indefinitely. After Alec's sentencing, Buster and Brooklyn moved to Hilton Head Island, seeking privacy and distance from the chaos. But the attention followed. By early 2023, Buster contacted police to report that he and Brooklyn were being stalked by members of the media. He claimed that photos of the inside of their apartment had been published. Their Ring doorbell camera captured a suspicious vehicle parked outside for hours at a time. Brooklyn filed her own report, describing a YouTuber who followed them and even peered into their car windows. The behavior of certain members of the press has become increasingly unsettling and frightening, she said in her statement. Despite trying to move on, Buster was pulled back into the media storm, especially as new docuseries and lawsuits kept his name in the headlines. The Murdaugh saga didn't begin with the double homicide, and it certainly didn't end there. In 2015, a 19-year-old nursing student named Stephen Smith was found dead on a rural road in Hampton County, not far from the Murdaugh estate. The official cause of death at the time? Hit and run. But Smith's injuries didn't match that theory. No skid marks, no vehicle debris, a deep wound to the head, but no evidence of being struck by a car. Soon, rumors spread that Stephen had been involved in a secret romantic relationship with Buster Murdaugh, and that something had gone horribly wrong. When the double murders of Maggie and Paul happened in 2021, the Stephen Smith case was reopened as a homicide, and the Murdaughs were back under scrutiny. Buster has repeatedly denied any involvement. "I never had anything to do with his murder, and I never had anything to do with him on a physical level," he told the press. In 2023, Buster filed a defamation lawsuit against Netflix and other media companies for insinuating that he was involved. As of now, he has not been named a suspect or person of interest in the Stephen Smith case. In 2018, the Murdaugh family's longtime housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, died after allegedly tripping on the steps at the Moselle home. Her death wasn't just a tragedy. It was part of a financial crime. Alec Murdaugh and family friend Corey Fleming stole a $4.3 million wrongful death settlement intended for Satterfield's 2 sons. Alec was later charged with 2 counts of obtaining property by false pretenses. In 2019, Paul Murdaugh was involved in another tragedy. He was allegedly driving a boat under the influence when it crashed, killing Mallory Beach. Paul was only 19 at the time. Despite the deaths, despite the lawsuits, Alec tried to argue in court that the murders of Maggie and Paul could have been revenge for the boating crash, but the jury didn't believe that either. After surviving years of loss, scandal, and betrayal, Buster Murdaugh has finally taken a step forward. He got married. In May 2025, Buster and Brooklyn White tied the knot at a private ceremony held at a former hunting estate in South Carolina. The location was a poignant, almost haunting choice. The ceremony was small and heavily guarded from the media. Friends say the couple wanted a fresh start, something normal in a life that has been anything but. Brooklyn has been Buster's anchor through it all, from the murders to the trial to the endless public scrutiny. Now, for the first time in years, Buster Murdaugh has something resembling peace. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update in the Murdaugh saga or the next big true crime story. Thanks for being here.